My grandfather was a very hardened man, very industrious. I grew up in Goa in the 1940s, 50s.
So I am the clown living on the 22nd floor.
When I was a young boy, visiting my grandfather during summer vacations, I remember once I had a flu of some sort of a cold. I was running a cold with some temperature, and my throat was burning. It was a terrible case of a sore throat. My grandfather reached into his cupboard and removed a bottle that was shaped like a violin. Now, my grandfather has always been a teetotaler. He's abhorred alcohol, and I never, and neither have my parents ever seen him consume any. So I was a little surprised to see this bottle coming out from his cupboard. He took it out, he uncorked it, he poured a little shot, and he gave it to me. He said, "Have it." I had it, and instantly my throat burned. Tears came into my eyes. It was an obnoxious liquor. I was probably 8 or 9 at the time. But what I do remember is feeling much better in the 5 or 10 minutes after, and naturally falling asleep. I woke up the next morning and feeling not completely fine, but much better off than the night before. And eventually, over the course of the day, I completely recovered and had no more sore throat. Now, it's been a couple of years rather, since my grandfather's passed on. But I remember this specific bottle because this bottle, it still stays in our family home in Pune. And it's a very old bottle. The label's completely worn out. It's the only thing that could discern any specific characteristic on it was these initials MR, which were engraved or embossed on the glassware of the bottle. Other than that, the bottle was pure violet. And so I kind of did a little bit of research to figure out what is MR. And I also came upon a small little engraving of the year 1932 on the bottle. And upon going to Goa on my last trip in February, kind of tried to find out a little more about where that bottle came from and a little bit of history of that bottle. Here goes. So when I reached Saligao, I met up with Joshua from Soul Traveling. We met up at the My Day Duist Church, is the Mother of God Church in Saligao. We walked around the village, went across, saw a couple of houses. So we saw some of the local graffiti, cultural hubs. Saw a lot of the streets. We walked around the village generally, and eventually we came across this old colonial house. It looked very well done. It didn't look that old. It looked recently renovated, but just as you could, once inside the gate, it was very clear that this house wasn't one of the new houses, but slightly older and dated.
On that board there, Villa M.R. D'Souza,
Yeah.
which means it was built. The house was built for M.R. D'Souza. Constructed in the year 1933 is what it says in Portuguese. By his widow, Persua Viva. So Viva means his widow. By his widow, Maria Baldina Saldana. So that was her name. It was constructed by his widow in 1933, along with her son, Philo Tome M.R. D'Souza. Philo is basically son. So Tome M.R. was the son of Maria Baldina, and both of them basically constructed the house in loving memory of the man who had passed away. Yes, that's the original owner. Now they went to an extent of customizing the house so much to this man M.R. that if you notice on the gates, if you see M.R.
And
on the window on top M.R. Look down the tiles, M.R. as well again. So everything was customized to this man's name as such, M.R. Now even if you go inside the house, you notice a lot of M.R. everywhere else. I'll show you many places again where M.R. is stated. So they went to build the house for him. It was originally built for this man, M.R. And then Tome basically had 3 sons. which one son's name was Cedric. And these people, they were all moved to, to Africa. Because they were in trade with Africa. They settled in Africa. So when this house was just left here. Slowly the house started falling into ruins as such. People started robbing the house. There were 2 robberies that happened.
Right. Okay.
One from the back door, which I'll show you later, that they added a metal door. Because there was a robbery from the back door, they put a metal door there so that nobody entered through the back door. Then there were tiles originally on the house, which the burglars opened the tiles and entered through, came down the steps, and then robbed the house. So again, there they had put rail guards, like as such, railings so that nobody could get inside. And the eldest son of Tommy started selling things from the house, furniture from the house, antiques. And Cedric didn't like it. One of the sons who was in Africa, so he decided to sell it to a friend of his, who was the Vaz family.
Okay.
So the Vaz family, now a bit about the Vaz family, they were bakers from Moira actually. So they had a first bakery in the village of Moira, which was opened in 1922. So have you heard of Mr. Baker 1922?
Yeah.
This is the garden, and just after the garden there's a bakery there called Mr. Baker's 1922.
With the old lady.
Yeah.
Who's there.
So that's basically the Vaz family itself. So Miss Fork was called Mr. Baker 1922. Now next year will complete 100 years. It was known as PVV, Pedro Vincent Vaz Enterprises. So Pedro Vincent Vaz was the first original baker who started the full thing, of the bakery, and he opened his bakery in Moira. Moira didn't have that many people coming, so he shifted to a city area, which was Mapsa. Mapsa was rising, that time of rising. So they started selling the bakery items there, and they bought a house in, in Kodalim, that's just beside Mapsa. So that was the ancestral house. Now they bought that house and they were well-to-do, bakers as such, as well as they had connections with Portuguese people and, people from abroad who used to bring down alcohol. So they were actually one of the first distributors of foreign liquor here in Goa. Nobody else used to distribute foreign liquors. So they were distributors of foreign alcohol. And around that time, when they started distributing foreign alcohol, they realized that there was an industry for even the cashew fenny. You see, people were getting cashew fenny in Goa, but it was sold very locally at bars, and it was given in cups, it was given in whatever containers you took, like plastic bottles and all. There was no proper glass bottle. So the Vaz family were one of the first people to actually conceptualize the idea of bottling fenny, so that people could take it either to another state of India or take it abroad with them, the hippies or whoever came there. So the hippies actually came in 1960, so before the hippies, like any foreigners who came to Goa as such could take along with them fenny from Goa. So they bottled the first fenny, which was known as Patron, the first company. Patron it was known as, which that time the trend was not for Konkani words. Now if you obviously start an alcohol company known as Patron, people will buy it because Patron, it's a Konkani word.
Yeah.
But back then there was a trend going on for English words. So it was known as Big Boss back then.
Okay.
So they changed the name from Patron to Big Boss, but what they sadly didn't do was patent Patron. So another Gujarati man who saw this idea took Patron. They could never take Patron, the name back again as that. So Big Boss stayed with them, and they started bottling this fenny. When they started coming on the shelves, it went like wildfire. People just bottled off like fast, quick. And the first bottling was not done by them. It was bottled at Vinicola's Costa's Vinicola, which is now also till date they bottle, I think, so port wine itself, and even the Costa factory have the canning factory as well, where they can corned beef and other stuff. So they had given the first contract to Vinicola's Costa's Vinicola, and they started bottling. Now the bottles sold so fast that Vinicola's couldn't produce those many bottles, and Costa actually Mr. Costa actually looked, they're making so much money and we are doing something and we're hardly earning anything. Why don't we start bottling them and keep them on hold? Tell them that we can get your bottles, if you make it. There's some bad dispute there, what's it called, bad relations as such. And they cut the ties with Costas because Costas were not giving them bottles enough. So they decided to get their own bottles imported and start bottling inside this house as well. So now
After Joshua told us about the history of the house, we went inside. The living room was completely filled with antiques, like a lot of Goan colonial houses. But as we pressed inside the house, we came into a little antechamber. All across the walls of the antechamber were shelves, and in the shelves were bottles. Some of the bottles were dated, old, imported brands like BSOP, like Pernod Ricard, ESOP, Buffalo, etc. You could make out that these bottles are from the 60s, 50s, 70s. There were also bottles by local manufacturers in Europe. Bottles from Greece, bottles from Yugoslavia, from Croatia, from all sorts of places in the world, including Brazil, Montenegro, from Macau. And then there was another wall with just bottles of their own Fenny and alcohol products over the years. But on top of the shelf was an illustration by Mario Miranda. Now, Mario Miranda, when he's illustrated throughout his career, he's never done product placement or put a particular brand on any label in any of his illustrations. But one illustration stands apart from the rest, which he made, which very clearly showed a bottle of Fenny with the words Big Boss on it. And the Big Boss Fenny was the one manufactured by Madame Rosa. And so we kind of looked at that. Right behind the illustration was another shelf. It had a violin-shaped bottle on it. The label was pretty much intact, had the words Serenade on it. I was staring at my grandfather's bottle. There was no doubt about it. The violin shape was perfect, the glass was exactly the same, and the bottle cap was made of the same material the bottle I had back home.